Thank you, Steve. I want to thank this extraordinary leadership team. They're doing a great job, and there's a lot on our plates, as has been discussed. I do want to address Israel briefly, and then we'll take some questions. But it was 2 weeks ago, of course, that a bipartisan group of House members passed our substantive and immediate aid to Israel. We thought that was important. It was the first big thing that I did when I became Speaker. The aid package meets every specific ask of the Biden administration supplemental funding request, because those are the requests that came straight from our ally Israel. It should have already soared through Congress. It should be signed into law, but it's not. And so we're calling on the Senate to get serious about this and get serious about supporting Israel. Last week we heard directly, as you know, from families of Israeli hostages who were taken and being held in Gaza, and their stories are heartbreaking and tragic. And you've heard about the film that we watched this morning. We had a large group of Republican and Democrat members of the House in the auditorium this morning, and you could have heard a pin drop, except for the sighs and the cries in the room, because the video would make anyone with a soul cry. What we saw is just harrowing, firsthand videos, GoPro helmet cams and shoulder cams from the Hamas attackers themselves on October 7th. And if you have a family, if you have loved ones, you cannot watch this without being ripped apart. I agree with our friend Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said this is a battle between good versus evil, between light versus darkness, between civilization and barbarism. And we want to make absolutely clear where America stands in that fight, and we'll continue to do that. The only goal of these barbaric savages, if you can see in these videos, and you've seen the still shots and all the rest, that they were, as was said, they wanted to kill and rape and maim Israeli citizens, innocent citizens, families, small children, pregnant women, the elderly. They want the annihilation of Israel, and it's their intent, and it is demonic. There's the only way to describe it. The Middle East is a tinderbox right now. We know that, and we have to do all we can to avoid a broader regional conflict and prevent further escalation. And so it is absolutely imperative that we send this aid to Israel immediately and show the rest of the world that these acts of terror against our allies will not just be met with unflinching condemnation, but with steadfast support. It is in our national interest to do so, and I think everyone who looks at this objectively has to agree that that's true. In my acceptance speech 3 weeks ago, I said a strong America is good for the entire world, and I believe that. We believe that to our core. We are the beacon of freedom, and right now we need to act like it. So we call on our Senate colleagues, we call on the White House to get that measure completed. We have the CR today, and I know you'll have questions about that, so we'll go to a few.
Mr. Speaker.
Fox.
Thank you. Good morning. My question is, how hard a sell has this been for your members? Because they said this is essentially the same thing that bounced Kevin McCarthy. And if you get fewer votes from the Democrats than he got, or fewer votes from Republicans within the previous CR, doesn't that undercut the essence of what you did?
No, Chad, this is an important innovation, okay? And as was explained earlier, as long as I've been in Congress for 7 years, we have governed by omnibus bills right before Christmas. It is a terrible way to run a railroad. And the reason that we're in such trouble with our federal debt is because Congress is addicted, obsessed with this deficit spending. What happens, as you know, there's a CR that goes right up to Christmas break, and then they jam upon us, as has been said, thousands of pages in legislation that no one really has a chance to adequately read through and digest or amend or anything else. Last year it was $1.7 trillion, with a few hours' notice, and they added 100 or 200 billion extra sprinkled on top of spending that no one had ever actually vetted or gone through. We cannot do that anymore. We have a $33.6 trillion federal debt. Moody's downgraded our credit rating just this week. 2 weeks ago, the Treasury Department announced we have to borrow $1.5 trillion over the next 2 quarters to keep the government going. We cannot do that anymore. And so the latter CR, the two-step CR, everybody calls it something different. It's a new innovation. But it's going to change the way we've done this. We have broken the fever. We are not going to have a massive omnibus spending bill right before Christmas. That is a gift to the American people, because that is no way to legislate. It is not good stewardship. It's the reason we're in so much debt. That and the effects of Bidenomics, but we have to change it. And so we've gotten together. I believe there's going to be bipartisan agreement on that to break it up and put it into January 19th for the first tranche of the bills, and February 2nd for the rest. And that will allow us to go through the deliberative process in good faith. I'm going to take everybody at their word that we're doing this in good faith, to do the appropriations process as it should be done.
But that
should have been done before.
That didn't seem to satisfy some of the arch conservatives in your conference. That's why the Freedom Caucus put out a statement saying they were opposed.
Chad, I'm one of the the arch conservatives, okay? And I want to cut spending right now, and I would like to put policy writers on this. But when you have a 3-vote majority, as we do right now, we don't have the votes to be able to advance that right now. So what we need to do is avoid the government shutdown. Why? Because that would unduly harm the American people. Troops wouldn't be paid. You know, we know all the effects of that. And so we have to avoid that, and we have a responsibility to do it. But this allows, as was said, as the majority leader said, this allows us as conservatives to go into the fight on the next stages of this, to talk about real border changes, policies at the border, to close the southern border, to get it under control, to talk about the oversight that's necessary on additional Ukraine aid, to get Israel done if they don't do it as we beg them to do. All these other matters in the supplemental, that puts us in the policy discussion, and we'll have stringent fights on principle and philosophy and cuts as well.
Mr. Speaker, just to follow up on that, a number of Republicans are supporting your plan to avert a government shutdown, but you've obviously heard the concerns from the some that are not. What did you tell those members who call your plan a mistake, who say it's a surrender?
We're not surrendering, we're fighting, but you have to be wise about choosing the fights. You gotta fight fights that you can win, and we're going to, and you're going to see this House majority stand together on our principle, and we're going to do that. But the shutdown would occur on November 17th. Look, it took decades to get into this mess, right? I've been at the job less than 3 weeks, right? I can't turn an aircraft carrier overnight. But this was a very important first step to get us to the next stage so that we can change how Washington works. And I think the ladder CR, the two-step CR, however you describe it, is a big, important part of that. And I think every member in that room agrees that that's an important innovation, and it changes the way things are done.
You're doing what Kevin McCarthy did. You're extending government funding. You're not including spending cuts. Democrats, you're going to need them to carry this. He lost his job in large part over this. Are you concerned at all that this could make your speakership any less secure?
I'm not concerned about it at all. And Kevin, should take no blame for that. Kevin was in a very difficult situation when that happened. This is a different situation. The innovation that we've created, this new vehicle that the Democrats initially said was so frightening, actually turns out to be something that will change the way we do this. And so this is a very different situation. We're taking this into the new year to finish the process and get back to the original way that this is supposed to work. And by the way, the House Republican Conference is committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. The Budget Control Act of 1974 has very specific provisions in there on how this is to be done. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that. So let me go here and I'll go back for it.
Speaker, just on a personal level, how are you feeling about the reality, like you just mentioned, that you do have a slim majority, you are having to work with a Democrat-controlled Senate, a Democrat in the White House, so you have to pass something that's kind of against your conscience. How are you feeling about that?
Well, look, getting us beyond the shutdown and making sure that government stays in operation is a matter of conscience for all of us. We owe that to the American people. I believe that we can fight on principle and do these things simultaneously. When you have a small majority, it requires some things are going to have to be bipartisan. But I think these are issues that every member of Congress should agree on. We are on an unsustainable track with our debt. There's no two ways about it. And I think everybody recognizes that we've got to get down to the matter, the heart of this, to change the way we do business. We have an important role to play in the world, but we have to take care of our own house first. And these things must be done simultaneously, and it needed to start a generation ago. It hasn't, and we're on the job now. We're going to make it happen.
Mr. Speaker.
On the CR, I mean, this whole Congress has been kind of a struggle to pass conservative-led appropriation bills. What gives you confidence that you can pass appropriations bills in this time frame that are going to be conference? I mean, obviously Democrats will come over and help out, but are you confident that you can even pass these appropriation bills on the proper deadline?
Yeah, part of the reason I'm confident about this is I've been drinking from Niagara Falls for the last 3 weeks. This will allow everybody to go home for a couple of days for Thanksgiving, everybody cool off. Members have been here for, as Leader Scalise said, for 10 weeks. This place is a pressure cooker. And so I think everybody can go home, we can come back, reset. We're going to get our group together. We're going to map out that plan to fight for those principles. And we have some great plans in the playbook already. And I look forward to rolling that out. You'll see much more of that.
What are some of those plans?
Quick Israel question. Are you committed to having a supplemental pass before the next CR passes?